Wow. Wow, wow, hey, pura vida, mi gente. Much love and respect. Thanks to everybody that's tuned in right now. We live, so have patience with me today. We're live and direct. Chicago's in the house. We got South Carolina in the house too. All right. Hawaii, yeah. Pura vida. ¿Qué me dice? Yeah. Puerto Rico and Chicago, huh? Okay. Yeah, so we're gonna do part 2 today of this comparative philology. Basically, we're just gonna continue to read the book we were reading the other day on part 1. A lot of good information comparing these languages. It's a good book. Hey, Phoenix is in the house. We got Virginia, Detroit. We got the Cape Verdean community in the house. Boston in the house. You already know. 617. My hometown. Yes, sir. So, yeah, it's a great book. We're going to definitely continue reading it. Like I said, haven't had the time to sit down and record. Have a lot of family visiting from Boston. So we've kind of been taking care of them and kind of reminiscing and chilling. And so, I decided, let me go live at least and continue reading the books. That's what we're going to be doing next couple of days. Reading, getting through these books. Hope you guys like the Tayo's investigation, Tayo's cave. Pretty good information there. I did want to just want to say something about the last video, part 29, American Indians photos colorized. Yeah, I guess people didn't like the thumbnail or whatever, I changed the thumbnail. Maybe it'll get more likes and views than people's biases. But a lot of people talking about, this ain't my people, this ain't, these are all Siberians, these are all Mongols. And I just gotta say, you guys are blind, man. And I mean, look through it correctly, man. Everybody, every person. They don't all look the same. And there's 29 parts. That's 1,500 to 2,000 images, almost. And I probably got more, you know, like that, just on the 29 parts. So, you know, if you guys don't understand, you know, it's all related to what we're studying today and all these comparative philology languages. We have many nations here. Everybody wasn't the same, you know, but you don't have to point out other people's differences. You don't even know your genealogy most of the time, full genealogy. So you can't be judging like that. Either way, these are very dark-skinned individuals, is the point I'm trying to show. Um, it doesn't matter what you say, all right? And, you know, my eyes don't lie. And you guys can, you know, have stereotypes and be prejudiced and all that. If you want to continue with that kind of view on life and perspectives and, you know, way that you live, that way doesn't work. It hasn't worked. That's why we keep, you know, just fighting amongst each other and doing things to each other and, you know, not understanding each other instead of, you know, what's the point of pointing your fingers? What is you doing? You know, what's your genealogy? You know, don't think you're 100% anything either. So these language studies kind of shows what I'm talking about. And you'll see different tribes in America that are related to other parts, other peoples in the world that are not from America, but other peoples in the world, they're kind of the languages are kind of the same with certain tribes here. You know, so not everybody in America is the same either. Let me see, get to the book right real quick. This is the book we're gonna continue reading today. So again, that's Researches in Prehistoric and Protohistoric Comparative Philology, Mythology, and Archaeology, in connection with the origin of culture in America. Again, I'm gonna repeat, the origin of culture in America, many cultures, and the ACCAD or Sumerian families. What? Again, the origin of the ACCAD or Sumerian families. Where? In America. I didn't write this book. Hyde Clark did, a member of the Anthropological Institute, a core member of the American Oriental Society, of the Byzantine Philological Society, former member of the American Anthropological Institute, all right, Library of Congress, 1875. This is where we're going to continue reading today. Okay, we left last time looking at a graph. You guys remember? All right, this was the graph we were looking at. Something like this. All right, and we're going to continue reading where we left off, basically, after this graph right here. So if you haven't seen part one of this installment, make sure to catch that. We went through a lot of good information. All right, let me go ahead and fix this. All right. Again, this is right after the the graph, and it's right away. It's going to tell you something deep, which we went over in part one when you're talking about Caucasians. Always want to say the Caucasians came. What Caucasians? You know, you're giving people too much history here. Like, you know, there can be no reasonable doubt that High Asia is a center to which in ancient times on the West Caucasia, the Nile, and West Africa conformed, as India did to the south, but it has been denuded of its early black races, and many later, Caucasia, early black races. All right, you guys hearing? It's early black races, Caucasia, original Caucasians, and of many later. For instance, the number of Aryans is very small. From High Asia, Caucasia was supplied to the west, and thence the African regions which present a parallel. To the south are found India and Australasia, and to the east, Northeast Asia, North America, Central America, and South America. If the southern margins, including Aros, etc., were taken, we should obtain early prehistoric members. The following shows the relations of the Caucasian center. All right, and it's giving you a little graph again. Let me know if the music's too loud, guys. Put it down. Yeah, wow, welcome. Just going over this philology study, okay? Aga or Havila. Remember the Aga in Eastern Africa? Compared to the Akkaoi in Europe, and so on. You guys can see. See, Peruvian, Sumerian, Canaan, Akkad, Peruvian, Teguin, Southeast Asia. Okay, the Puelche, the Amagua with the Aga, the Basque, Calarian with the Puelche. The languages and mythology of High Asia were reproduced, and their parallels were found in Caucasia, which came in the historical school of Babylon to be regarded as the paradise or cradle of the human race. The migrations were transferred to the Nile region, and at a later day, the localities were mixed up with those of Caucasia and High Asia. All right, so what High Asia? Remember, Asia Minor, so where's Asia High? High Asia, yeah, North America, India Superior. It was all connected way more. Back in the day, there was more land connected to Asia. We got maps showing that. So many maps showing, how it just used to connect to Asia. We know camels originated here. They went into Asia. We know that. Mammals, first land out of the waters. You've been seeing it in reverse the whole time, talking about the Bering Strait. High Asia. Yeah, don't get confused. North America, High Asia, India Superior, the land of Prester John. Shout out to Drop Nation. The following shows the relation of the Nile Center, right? So you guys can see their little graph. All right. Not sure why this is so flipped in so many ways, but here we go. We got Pygmian, Andaman, and Shoshones. You guys seen the Shoshone images I got of 1800s? Very dark-skinned people. Pygmian, the Andaman, Shoshone, huh? The Nile region must be looked upon as the transmitting station for West Africa. The following shows the relations of West Africa as a center of languages and population. All right, this is their little comparisons. We went over some of it in the part one, remember? Carib, the homie. India, Gagaru. Carib, who's the Carians? Who's the sea peoples? Been going all over the world, navigating. There was a center in Central America, the Spear Balls. That was a navigational school. The Spear Balls of Costa Rica. There was always a canal between Costa Rica and Nicaragua. There was an ancient canal there. You can see it in old maps. They've been crossing the Americas from there since ancient times. It was a center. They used to go out from here. And then you guys see the Wolof and all that. It will be seen that the copious series of West African classes are transmitted from the east and must have traversed the Nile region, and the barbarism of West Africa is attributable to its non-participation in the higher migrations. Passing from High Asia to the south, we have to consider the relations of India as a center, which are thus illustrated. Okay? And the Wolof comparing to the Khand of India. And we went over actually very in detail the Wolof and all the different nations in India that actually have almost similar language. There was more in India. So where did they really come from? We've been seeing it in reverse. And then America, Carib. Who's the ancient Nagas? Kamchatdale, Doug. Right? Doug. And the Aga, again to Amagua in America. So you guys can see who they compare in the Americas. In the prehistoric period, there was an absolute conformity between India and Africa, which is confirmed by collateral ethnological facts. From India was most probably the route of departure for Australasia and for Indochina, and through these to America in the later epochs. All right, they've seen it in reverse. Northeast Asia constituted a center of passing for migration. And here's their comparison. Remember, they were comparing the Eskimo with the Bushman, the language. We got references of Eskimo being very dark skinned as well in old books. They weren't always only pale skin. But look at that with the pigment, huh? How can they have similar languages? Carib Aino of Japan, the Carib and the Aino of Japan, the homie. Why are they Amazonian women? Because they coming from the Carib, from the real Amazonas. They brought the culture over there. Remember, the origin of culture in America. Think big. Either way, the ones in the Dahomey region, 1600s is when they originated, and they were elephant hunters, most. The Aga class appears to have left no representatives in Northeast Asia, nor did the Sumerian. They are, however, inferred that whilst the other and earlier migrations passed over Bering Straits, the latter passed over the Pacific by Easter Island. The mound builders may have passed over by the northern route, but they may have been intermediate between the Sumerian and Aga migrations. May have. We think so. We may have. I wonder. I think. May have. That's what I'm saying. America's a truer world. All the languages are here. The relations of the languages of America with those of the old world has been exhibited at each stage, okay? But the comparison is shown in a succeeding table, in which represents an affinity of at least 100 languages on each side. Languages common to America and the old world. Okay? See the little graph he has here? Yeah. Pygmy Creek Natchez Minkopi, Shoshone Mkopi, Moyoruna Gonga. Look at that. Lenca Kuri, Honduras Kuri. With the absolute chronology of these successions, I do not propose to deal. 3,000 years ago, the Sumerian race had come in contact with the Semitic, to which it had to succumb. 700 years later, 700 years later is perhaps to be taken as the epoch of conflict with the Aryan race. This, however, gives us no real instrument of measure. We do not sufficiently know how far the members of the Hamitic classes are to be regarded as synchronous. This is to be observed, on the other hand, that it must have taken long periods for races so weak as the Pygmy to have permeated the world, penetrating to Tierra del Fuego, that's on the tip of South America, literally hitting Antarctica, the gateway. To the other world, huh? Yeah. By traversing Bering Straits and the whole Pacific coast of the Americas. Although the Sumerians were assailed by the Semitic. Now, one thing before we keep reading about Sumerians, there wasn't really any Sumerian nation. Sumer was a place. So people coming out of that place were referred to as Sumerians. And a lot of those so-called Sumerians were from different nations. That's what I'm trying to tell you. They were just dwelling in Sumer. So, like if you're in California and you leave California, like he's a Californian, doesn't mean, he can't be, from Asia as well, or Hispanic, or, from any part of the world, but everybody that lives in California, right, is California. That doesn't make them a whole nation. So Sumerians, I got the video on the Sumerians, right? Conan the Barbarian, Sumerians, those are the real, that's where the name really comes from. And there is some kind of relation there. Trust that. So, yeah, Sumerians, as you will find out, it's going to all lead to South America. We had a different name here. These people had different names and stuff here. They were known for different things. So, Sumer is a place again. Although the Sumerians were assailed by the Semites 3,000 years ago, they were only overcome by the Spaniards for 100 years since, and Indochina they still flourish. The question, therefore, is not the duration of culture in the form of language, but what are the spaces required for its development. If the Sumerian settlement in Babylonia took place 4,000 years ago, then the settlement in India would be of the same date. If the migration was from a common center in High Asia, as a division of the West and East Sumerian in pronouns and other details seem to indicate. The settlement in Indochina would shortly follow, and afterwards the occupation of Java and the islands. It is quite within compass that Pera was reached 3,000 years ago, or even 4 or 5,000. It is to be observed that the Malay occupation of Australasia must have cut off the Sumerian intercourse with America. Then it is to be taken into consideration that if the intercourse had been kept up at a time when large ships were used by the Phoenicians, what Phoenicians? Remember, sea peoples? Chinese, what Chinese? Greeks, so called Greeks, Romans, what Romans? And Arabs. A lot of generalizations here. People came from different nations, a lot of them Phoenicians, to the Danites. Now, Chinese, when we talk about Chinese, one of the most famous navigators, I forget his name, that came to America. You guys know what I'm talking about, 1400s, before Columbus. He was actually Muslim. His parents were from a different place. They were what they were calling here so-called Arab. So that's what I'm saying. Got to get specific. We're talking about Romans, Edomians, Greeks. Greeks include Israelites. Greeks include Japheth people, Hamite people. It's all different. They grouped them together. They just got Hellenized. Hellenized became Greek, Hellenized. We should have witnessed different conditions. Cattle and horses would have been carried across the Pacific had the intercourse from Indochina to South America been fresh in the memory of the Arab navigators would have heard of it. Right? And I'm live, so hey, I might, babble a little, man, give my little opinion here and there, but it's based on the research that we're doing. So Arab mix, exactly. So it's like a generalization. A lot of the times these you got to study the etymology of these words. Okay, guys. There is a prevalent notion among naturalists that words are perishable and cannot be transmitted, but that is founded on an erroneous conception, particularly of facts stated by Mr. A.R. Wallace. It is certainly true that under some circumstances, words are subject to mutation, but even in this respect, there are mostly limits to mutation. But it is nevertheless certain that words can be transmitted for thousands of years. So far as the Sumerian is concerned, words written 3 or 4 or 5,000 years ago in Babylonia, where the language is extinct, are preserved in an unwritten form by American populations. Okay? That's a big one right there. Hope you guys understood what he just said. And that's all these inscriptions and ancient writings we're finding here. We got videos on that. Shout out to Barry Fell and the lady, what's her name? I got her book right here. Gloria Farley, her book In Plain Sight, which we're going to get into some more. I got to scan it, because it's a physical copy. But all these old world inscriptions, what you call so-called Sumerian, the Babylonian script, the Punic, Assyrian, right? That's really what it is when you're talking about Sumerian tablets. No, that's Assyrian script. Look it up. It's Assyrian script. It's not no Sumerian, whatever you're calling it. It's Assyrian script. The Assyrian people come from Ashur, right? Who is Ashur? Ashur is a son of Shem. Okay? Doesn't mean he's from Eber or Ibedu, of the culture of the Hebrew language, right? Language, we're talking about philology today, mother tongue. So you can see why any of the sons of Shem could have carried some of the mother tongue to their nations, and why it might be similar to the Ibedu, so what Abraham was, speaking at his time and passed down, what they officially called Hebrew. But Hebrew, again, studied the etymology, right? One literally from the other side, a migration. He, on the other side, who passes beyond the Euphrates. Okay. So where were we, guys? Oh yeah, he just dropped the bomb here. Sorry, I got sidetracked. So far as the Sumerian is concerned, words written 3 or 4 or 5,000 years ago in Babylonia. Listen to this, guy. Something that they supposedly found over there that was written 4 or 5,000 years ago, where the language is extinct. The language is extinct, supposedly over there. You guys understand the word. It was never over there. That's not the old world. That's why it's so closely extinct. But somehow, guys, it's still preserved in an unwritten form by American populations. It's still here somehow. It went extinct over there where it originated, supposedly. But it's still here, preserved. Because this is the true old world. Still longer periods must have passed for the diffusion of the identical words in the Kolarian of India and of the Hausa, and more still for the period of diffusion of Wolof in Africa and Khand in India. Okay? To naturalists, I would particularly point out the names of animals common to South America and Central Africa. The observance of these facts and of the law resulting therefrom is of great importance in the whole history of culture because they give us a life for a word or for a myth, as for a race, and in many cases the word or the myth is more purely preserved from intermixture than the cranial forms. It will thus be seen that the way in which I propose to deal with the prehistoric and protohistoric periods is other than the methods adopted in the valuable works of Sir John Lubbock, Mr. Tyler, Professor Reinisch, or Professor Frederick Mueller, and that collaterally and by a parallel path I follow the investigations of Colonel Lane Fox and Mr. J. Evans. If I go beyond these, I do not enter on the domain of later philology and mythology, which has been occupied with so much learning and ingenuity by Professor Max Mueller and others. Prehistoric comparative philology is closely connected with comparative mythology, and the two subjects illustrate each other. It would therefore be well if the term cultural philology could be employed. In the prehistoric period, an idea was represented by 3 or 4 words, and again a word was represented by 3 or 4 ideas. Thus we find that words or roots are interchangeable, and it is necessary to study their morphology for the purpose of understanding the equivalence and real connection of roots and various languages. The roots. All right, and they're giving you a table of equivalence of roots and words. Feel free to like take a screenshot, when you can at a later time or when you're watching this later. Look at that. Yeah. Words matter. They cast spells. You gotta know that. All right, here's more of the table. Dog and kite, huh? Daughter and woman, yup. Pretty interesting. You guys see? Yeah, welcome. Thanks for tuning in. We're just reading this great book right here, trying to understand philology. Yeah. Yo, shout out to Nine Spiral. Make sure you guys subscribe to this channel. Good brother, good heart, most high people. You already know. Among the earliest forms of words, and those most widely distributed and longest preserved are those for parent at a later date discriminated into father and mother. The complex relations of kindred and of terms for it have been well treated by Sir John Lubbock. The Georgian language presents one example of the inversion of the usual distribution in Sumerian. In other classes, mama being father and deda mother. I'm in no department perhaps is the bearing of equivalent roots more strongly seen than in animal names. In Vasco Kolarian, many names of animals are allied to kari, dog, and this phenomenon is to be seen throughout. This root appears to be allied to kuritia, Basque, to run. In some languages, the stork is named from being a runner. In prehistoric philology, fowl is allied to foot and leg, most likely from running. One true origin of animal names is perhaps to be found in a passage of Herodotus, volume 316, dwelt upon by Mr. Tyler. It runs, by the Egyptians also it has been held that fire is a living beast, and that it devours everything it can seize, and when filled with food it perishes with what it has devoured. Being led to test this, I found the word fire to conform with dog and tiger in Hunter's New Aryan Dictionary, and further sun and star to conform. This I ascertained to be a general law of prehistoric language. If the word tiger be taken, the forms, although conforming also to dog, are mostly sun forms. Snake conforms to sun in virtue of the same law, and hence its place in nature worship with the sun. Sun worship, snake worship, huh? As the sun and stars have movement, it is to be conceived that men were led to assimilate to them the moving animals, beasts, birds, and snakes, as fire is allied to the sun, and as fire eats, so too was a conformity found with devouring beasts of prey. It is by no means impossible that the idea being so taken, the phonetic was obtained from crow, which gives the forms ka, kawa, kali, quora, kla. It may be a question whether the cock or the crow gave name to birds, for though Mr. Tyler quotes akoka in Igbo, cuckoo in Zulu, and kuko in Finnish, all right, same for the cock. Yet kaka is a wide name for the crow, and the same form has applied the word for cuckoo too. It is within compass that positive and negative names in the form of sun and moon names may have furnished many epithets. The sun for names of male animals, the moon or mother for female animals. It is certainly the case for female animals, but on account of common names being used for male and female, it is difficult to discriminate in all instances. The word for tiger in Hunter's Dictionary is so commonly a sun word, that we may in this way, from verbal mythology, obtain some notion why the tiger is so mysteriously regarded in India. This does not, however, support weather or cloud mythology. It is possible that the Egyptian doctrine may be applicable to the ACCAD cases, where L is an animal characteristic, as in man, mulu, mother, luku, stag, lulum, sheep, lu, some beast, lubat, bull, la, dog, and lion, liku. Sun is, however, lank, moon, lit, light, lik, and eye, limb. There are traces of the same phenomena in Ayamara and in Mexican, Ayamara. This syllable appears to exist in Indo-European and Semitic, as in lupus, lepus, alopex, leo, lagos, lucus, aleth, elephath, elaphros. With the sun idea, I should be inclined to connect the fact that with the Algonquins, not only all animals belong to the animate gender, but also the sun, moon, and stars. The animate gender includes trees and fruits, and besides the altar, sacrifice, stone, the bow, the eagle, and the feather, the kettle, tobacco pipe, drum, and wampum. Right? In Genesis 2:19, etc., it is said of every beast of the field and fowl of the air that whatsoever Adam called every living creature, that was the name thereof. And Adam gave names to all cattle, and to the fowl of the air, and to every beast of the field. This appears to preserve the tradition that in the prehistoric epoch, man did name the beast. All right? That really did happen, guys. And birds. We really did that. The system pursued being still recognizable. The names of beasts being founded on the type of the dog. Names of birds are founded on those of beasts. It can readily be understood how the vulture is named after the tiger, the hawk after the fox, the ostrich is a snake bird, the swan a dog and swine. Insects are also named after beasts. In the same way, the snake is assimilated to the horse, rat, and fish, as it is to the sun. The fish is the equivalent of the horse and snake. The eel is a snake fish. The bat is a bird. Of distinctive names for animals are to be noted for elephant, tooth for bear, teeth for mole, nose for horse, runner for fowl, leg and foot. Other equivalents will be found in the foregoing table of equivalents. The names of animals are in some cases obtained from combination of syllables expressing life, running negative, and for females, a female or mother negative. Thus, in various permutations, LR, all right, and you guys see the letters, in the Aga, etc., as BR. So they interchange this in the Aga language for BR, the LR. Okay? Mr. Tyler quotes Humboldt with regard to the Mexicans having retained the traditions of the elephant. All right? The Mexicans wrote about elephants and they have them in their drawings and in their stone. This is real. Humboldt is from the 1700s. He really wrote that in his book. There's things people don't know, don't study. It has appeared to me that the Tasmanian names given to the European animals resemble Sande, names of African animals, which must have been preserved by tradition. A good example of the common distribution of animal names will be found in those of the Nile region, Aga, etc., with Guarani of Brazil as Tapira, Taia, etc. The connection of the names of weapons with the distribution was illustrated by me in a note on the words for arrow and a paper on the prehistoric names for weapons read at the British Association in 1873. It was this investigation of the connection between archaeology and philology suggested by Colonel Lane Fox's lectures which enabled me to lay a firmer basis for the investigation of the connections between India and Africa and between the New World and the Old. Because it became evident that these were prehistoric and connected with successive migrations. They were connected and it's prehistoric, okay? America. Wow. The names for weapons will, of course, vary in neighboring tribes and be unequally distributed, and more particularly because the names of weapons are sometimes taken from conquering races. It appears to me that the names BK, BN, and KN are formed on negative roots as the word to kill or die, expressive of the characteristic of a weapon of death. I shall now give some examples of the distribution of roots for arrow or dart, knife, sword, axe, or hatchet, and spear or lance. All right, and this is a breakdown right here. Yeah, wow, welcome. Just going through this book. I mean, the author literally said the origin of culture in America and the Akkadian and Sumerian families. Okay? Yeah, hope you guys like the hope you guys can hear the music. The beet in the Wolof and Vasco-Colarian is related to egg, pea, bean. Thus it would appear as if beets were strong eggs and round seeds of plants. It may be that the pea and bean, being eatable, are named after egg and fowl, and that the bean was consequently endowed with various mythological attributes. In Basque, the names for pea, bean, and acorn appear to be related to stone. Mill was related to stone and rub. Several names of weapons appear to be related to snake and dog, as if running swiftly and endowed with life, others as said to death. And that's a big one right there, because we know the true, what is it, what is the jackal? The true snake is the jackal. Didn't we hear that somewhere? Who's the real trickster? Who's Anubis? The dog, right? Thoth, Hermanubis, man's best friend. Dog backwards, what do you get? You get God, right? Who's the real serpent? Telling you right here. And who's a Dracan? Don't mix the two up. So, again, several names of weapons appear to be related to snake and dog, as if running swiftly and endowed with life, others as said to death. The phenomena of the pronouns of a class are remarkable. In the early epochs, they are seldom generally or evenly distributed. The first pronoun singular may be uniform, but even this is not a rule. The second and third persons are frequently interchanged. It is, however, on pronominal and grammatical forms that many philologists most insist as a test of affinity. A curious example of disturbance is found in Akkad and Georgian. Each has a double plurals for nouns. For these in Georgian, by and ni or ni are in Akkad the third personal pronoun. The cause of this phenomenon is to be found and is in fact generally indicated in that excellent treatise on gesture language, which forms a chapter of the early history of mankind. It is because gesture was used to determine the word used for a person as a pronoun. All right? Gesture. The use of determinatives for the distinction of classes of objects is inherent in the prehistoric languages. It is particularly applied to the members of the body and sometimes to animals. Its application will be sufficiently exhibited by its copious forms in Basque. Comparative philology, all right? Prehistoric determinative or distinctive particles. You got head, you got Basque here, bu, I, be. You see that? Almost the same. The Coptic definite particles are masculine, p, pi, feminine, t, tai, t, plural. They are probably derived from the older determinatives, Vasco, Calarian, b, Guarana, Guarana from South America, aga, the common prehistoric determinative. Animal members are marked out by O, North America, Blackfoot, Cayuga, Mohawk, Onondaga, Tuscarora, Cawilo. What Mr. Tyler has pointed out with regard to the differencing of distance by sounds in the case of pronouns and adverbs, and what Professor Max Muller, expounding various authorities, has shown with regard to gender, are only applications of a general law. It is by differentiating by vowels of consonants that in the prehistoric languages distinctions are drawn between the meanings of the same roots, and this is well seen in the way in which an animal name for dog is made distinctive for various animals. This law of differencing has not received the attention it deserves. It is the true cause of some of the phenomena which has been attributed to normal changes of sound, to phonetic loss, to Grimm's law in particular, and to phonetic decay, and as to which doctrines Professor Max Muller has begun to show caution and to enforce it. It is in what I term the negative series that one of the leading laws of prehistoric philology and mythology is to be found. Under this, the negative, no or not, is the equivalent of night and black, Niger. It is also the equivalent of woman, as the negative man being treated as the positive. So all female names become negative. As wife, Eve, hound, equals, and you see that, the B word, oh snap. You see that? You guys read it. She goat, cow, mare, etc. In another relation, woman becomes the equivalent of the Jonah and mouth, and by her periodicity resembling that of the moon, the equivalent of that body. Death, kill, executioner have negative relations. So have egg and knit, and secondarily he, bean, and nut as resembling an egg. Ear and head appear to be negative. Cloud is a negative, and that is why in modern verbal mythology or solar myths it is found to conform with cow, as it may conform with any negative or female negative. Nepheli and mythology is one of the forms of Kave or Eve. Shadow is a negative, and in some cases equivalent to soul and night. In Guarani, there is an ingenious distinction between the soul of the living and the dead, and so of a head, bone, skin. The soul of the dead man is supposed in many countries to lodge in birds. This may be one ground why the bird is negative as bearing the soul of the dead, all right? Just like a crow, right? Blood is a negative apparently as related to death. Hence red is a negative, and some curious mythological and archaeological conditions arise, for red is likewise the equivalent of the number 2. Dr. Sefri informs me that red was the second color in various positions, as on dice and on temple terraces, but this requires closer investigation. Mr. Park Harrison and Mr. Jeremiah June have observed the use of red as a color widely prevalent in the regions now under consideration for the purposes of this investigation. The virtue of red as a preservative against the evil eye is referred to in Walter K. Kelly's Curiosities of Indo-European Traditions and Folklore. In Buchan, Aberdeenshire, the housewives tie a piece of red worsted round their cow's tail before turning them out to the grass for the first time in spring. It is, however, better shown in Germany, where herdsmen lay a woman's red apron on a broad axe covered with a woman's red stocking before the threshold of the cowhouse and make the animal step over it. The bringing together of woman and cow and red is noteworthy, all right? He's not just saying, comparing things, he's literally telling you, look, they're still practice these kind of things. So related. The ladybird seems to hold its place in folklore as being red. It is held unlucky to kill a ladybird in Germany, as the sun will not shine the next day. It is possible that the robin redbreast owes his mythical place to the same characteristic, and it is also unlucky to kill him. The woodpecker has a red head or mutch and a black body. Bat is negative, as is naked. Sleep and dream are negatives, as belonging to the night series. Salt is negative. Water, in some senses, is a negative and appears to be connected with woman. Night was the negative of day on the closing of the eye, and it had its own words of darkness, which is night sun, its sleep and its dreams. It was the domain of shadows and the ultimate refuge of the soul. Its mythological relations in this respect will best be studied in the treatment of animism by Mr. Tyler. There are few prehistoric, protohistoric, or historic languages which do not display the negative series. Among such may be named the Wolof, Aga, Vasco-Calarian, very marked, Ugrian, Egyptian, Sumerian, very marked, Dravidian, Semitic, not strongly marked in the Semitic, okay, Aryan, very marked. All right, you see that? For Aryan, a popular illustration is afforded by not, night, nut, knit, naked, nest, snow, Eve, egg, wife, cow, nox, nix, nex, nux, neck, nun, nudus, nidus, nodus, Niger, nubis, ovis, ovum, avis, uva, caput, aureus. The way in which the negative roots are distributed among the various branches of a class is peculiar and affords a distinction. It says, thus the Latin uses N largely and O, KR sparingly, Greek M, O largely, and so on. So it says the Ayamara, right, they're from South America, uses PKH, Mon uses P, K. In reality, that these syllables are chiefly the same, for the O is nothing but the KB and KB of the Vasco-Calarian and Sumerian Gaba, Paka. And the KR, Karua, Arius, etc., that of the Sumerian Raka. The words for women as Kave, Eve, Agave, Hebi, Nefeli, wife, have descended through ages as the formula for verbal mythology, and hence figure so largely in the earliest records of Genesis, in the traditions of the Eastern Mediterranean, and among the Aryans. A sufficient example will be afforded by the following. All right, and he got his negative series table here. All right, so I hope you guys enjoying so far, trying to make sure I pronounce every word correctly. We're gonna get to a good part, I guess, but he's breaking down how he kind of like does his philology, right? The study of languages. You guys can understand. For those who are like English majors and all that, like, teachers, you might not understand most of this. All right. But Hawa gives understanding, a lot of wisdom. Discernment, we touch the hijack here and there, and we use our discernment. Okay. Welcome. Hope you guys had a great Monday. I guess it's July 3rd, right? So maybe everybody's off and stuff. On vacation already, maybe, or not, or this was your last day, or you gotta work tomorrow. It don't matter. I don't, we don't celebrate. We already know. But shout out to Crispus Addicts anyways. Shout out to Crispus Addicts, the Nantucket Indian. Talking about July 4th, huh? All right. Just be safe. And, if you're around your loved ones, you know, let them know who they are, man. Help them out. Yeah. Wow. The chief negative. Monosyllabic particles are m, ma, and na, no, and I differ from Mr. Tyler as to their origin being interjectional and from De Brossy. It says, quoted by Tyler as to n being a nasal interjection of doubt or dissent. It appears reasonable to regard them under the new view as being in relation to the ma or na forms for mother, when these had been so distributed and applied. Mother being related to woman stands in a negative condition. The dissyllable form is largely developed with the negative. It should be mentioned that a negative is not necessarily a prefix or suffix, but in prehistoric grammar may be intercalated, as in Gandhi, Kand. Gandhi is same as Kand in Basque, Kalarian, and Sumerian ACCAD. It is on this principle probably that in many languages we employ a middle negative, with negative verbs as in ACCAD, Turkish, etc., and with auxiliaries, and our own and many modern languages. The Chinese pe, which is elsewhere negative in black, means white, and it is possible that in some cases negatives have been made positives to propitiate a good omen. Gender is closely connected with the negative relations. Mr. Tyler has very well said that the distinction of grammatical gender is a process intimately connected with the formations of myth. In addition to the explanations he has given, account should be taken of the effect of positive and negative ideas in gender. I concur with him that the gender beyond the masculine and feminine is relatively modern, but this in many cases belongs to the trinary epoch and is not in its origin a neuter gender, but a common gender. It is possible that the high caste or major gender of Dravidian, including gods and men, may be connected with the same phenomena because the common gender would be that of the chief god. It is a matter of great question whether, so far as the prehistoric epoch is concerned, the supposed solar and lunar mythology can be effectually applied as an exponent any more than it can under proper considerations to modern conditions. The verbal and mythological relation in the prehistoric epoch of women to the moon, for instance, is not properly a part of the modern meteorological mythology. Upon the subject of numerals, there is not the space to enlarge, if numerals are not always characteristic, because they are propagated and borrowed as instruments of culture. They are sometimes very valuable in that respect, as in the case of Akkad, Mon, and Peruvian. There is also much to be investigated as to their structure, other than in the course of the prevalent doctrines. It has long since been pointed out that the word for man largely constitutes the tribal name. Thus we have it in Aro, Ho, Aino, Mru, Minipo, Kuri, Kami, Kumi, Agu, Singpo. Black is the meaning of Wolof and Landoma. Sun appears to be the name for Bata, Apak, Shan, Hayu, Fula. Many tribal names are widely distributed. The Mundara and others of central India appear to be repeated in Central Africa. Okay? So where are these people really from? The following is a list of some common names. Okay? Kishwa, Kishe, Kisu, Babylonia, Kishu, Kishe, Kishu, Kemura, Ayamara, Kemura, Kemer, Kemet, what? Summer, Ayamara? Come on, man. Magyar, huh? Magyar. Remember that was Maya in the first chapter? Same. The comparative mythology requires to be carefully studied on these facts and principles. The distribution of the names for sun, moon, and stars present peculiarities, some of which can be recognized in the old world. Okay? Just, all right, hold on, let me get a sip of my tea. Hope you guys enjoying the read. I'm enjoying it because I haven't read this. I'm reading it with you. I thought, why not read it together? Hey, much love and respect, Tara. Thank you very much. The same type sometimes supplies sun, fire, and day. A form for moon, largely found in North America, is night sun. All right, the night sun is moon, same thing. That's why Jesus, remember my video, Jesus, it was actually the moon, which they called the night sun, because sun was Jesus in the Ojibwe Algonquin language. Is the sun, Jesus. Okay? It is from this practice that we may account for the same word occasionally figuring for sun and moon without a distinctive. The male moon had perhaps a relation to the moon appearing during the day. That eye has been used for sun, as in Indochina. In Australasia, we find Algonquin, Quichua, and Ayamara. Okay? Australasia, Southeast Asia. Come on, we got what? Man, among the Salivi of the Orinoco, we find for sun, Skyman. And among the Betoi of the Orinoco for sun, Skyman. And for moon, Skywoman. All right? Skyman and Skywoman. Sun and moon. Skyman is possibly found in the Serpa of Tibet, in the Singpo, Kodang, in the Koibu, and Mareng and Laos of the Burmese Peninsula. Same thing. Okay? Having referred to the connection between the New World and the Old, which is established by the great Department of Culture, speech, it would be desirable to deal with race, but that must be left for further examination. Certainly, the Eskimo must be acknowledged, and there are many who will accept the principle of humble that the Mongol type may be recognized in America. Yeah, not only what you're calling Mongol, though, many phenotypes here, many complexions or shades of the copper, very dark. To me, it appears that in the south and also in the north, types may be seen that are common to Indochina, India, and Africa. Okay, he's talking about America. Do you guys hear? Again, to me, he said, even though they try to recognize the Mongol type in America, to me, it appears that in the south and also in the north, North America, types may be seen that are common to Indochina, India, and Africa. Just like in Africa. All right? Phenotypes. My study, however, is for the time being that of culture and not that of the body. He ain't talking about the physical. He just dropped the major one right there. He's like, we find all that in the Americas. But we ain't talking about the physical appearance right now. The hair, so much regarded by some as distinctive, has in America old world representatives. Has in America the same, all types of hair, just like in the old world. You guys see, it's not me saying that. I didn't know this was in here. With regard to skulls, I can offer no opinion. Yeah, let's not go with that. The study, if you guys don't know, the study of craniology was, literally to try to prove that so-called black people was inferior. They're trying to say the size of skulls and all that. So, going with that, it's on you. But again, we had all those phenotypes, all types of hair here, just like in Indochina, India, and Africa. Just like the old world. You see it here. It's written in this book, 1875. Very scholarly book. With regard to skulls, I can offer no opinion. That must be left to Professor Busk and his colleagues. At the same time, in this and in other inquiries, we shall very probably find a difficulty the distinguished president of the Anthropological Institute has pointed out, and which now impedes the progress of craniology, and that is the want of distinctive characters in skulls of mixed races. In this we shall, however, most likely be ultimately assisted by the progress of other departments of anthropology. At present, even the finding together of long and short skulls afford little valuable material for determination. Okay. The compression of skulls is, as Professor Buss remarks, a phenomenon to be observed around the shores of South America, but it is worth noting that it occurred in Peru and also in the hill parts of Pegu. The whole subject of skull deformities in reference to America will be found in Daniel Wilson's Prehistoric Man. So what I like about this book is he quotes all his sources. You guys can go right to it. He said this. Hey, my boy Daniel said this. Hey, Professor Buss said this. Here's the page. So that's a good book. We've actually read before, Prehistoric Man by Daniel Wilson. All right. And that of Peru in a paper by him in Nature, and which was a subject of controversy. It thence appears that such deformities are not peculiar to America, nor characteristics thereof. Neither are they characteristic of the Aga or Sumerian races, but they are worth studying, as they may ultimately furnish evidence. Mr. Park Harrison refers to the extension of circumcision to Easter Island and Peru. Circumcision was found all over the Americas. It is distinctly observable in sculptures from Easter Island. All right, they even painted it like that. They even sculpted their men. Those stone heads, those big giant. They had circumcised private parts. Okay. Of its eastern extension, it is unnecessary to speak. Circumcision may possibly have some connection with the myth recorded by Mr. Tyler that in Brazil, after a couple have been married, the father or father-in-law cuts a wooden stick with a sharp flint, imagining that by this ceremony he cuts off the tails of any future grandchildren, so that they may be born tailless. It will be observed that a circumcising instrument is used a sharp flint. All right, he gave a wild opinion right there. Mr. J. Park Harrison, who has stated has devoted much attention to the various ethnological phenomena connecting the West and the East. The West and the East, we're talking about West and East hemispheres, so-called Old World with the so-called New World, all right, has treated, among others, of the artificial enlargement of the earlobe among various nations in the Journal of the Anthropological Institute, July and October 1872. Cases of this kind are prominent enough among the Indo-Chinese. Consul Hutchinson pointedly refers to an example in a little wooden idol from the Cerro del Oro, and he found others in the museum at Lima. In Mr. John L. Stevens' Central America, Volume 1, examples may be found in all these pages right here, guys. David Forbes refers, page 41, to the love for great ear ornaments among the Ayamaras. It is stated that the Incas only granted permission to indulge in enlarged earlobes as a privilege to the Ayamaras as a long time after the annexation to the empire, right? So the Incas took over the Ayamaras, remember? The question of mound monuments is one that must be passed over, as one not coming into the epoch we are now engaged with. In Polynesia, the remains of massive stone buildings have been found in Tongatabu, Easter Island, Rota, Tinian, Balan, and elsewhere. Wilson's Prehistoric Man. To these may be added Java, Pegu, Cambodia, Peru, Mexico, and Yucatan. Among the facts adduced by Mr. Park Harrison for the migration from east to west through Australasia, he refers to colossal heads in the east and in Easter Island. Colossal heads will be found in Stevens' Central America, Chiapas, and Yucatan. All right, all these pages. They have been identified in Babylonia, Cambodia, Easter Island, and Peru. M. Parrott, under the name of Lido Phrygian, and myself, under the name of Lido Assyrian, have pointed out the westerly extension of the monuments in Asia Minor, including the Niobe, near Magnesia and Moendrum, and the Pseudo-Sesostris near Nympha in the Smyrna district. To this may be added the colossal head from the outskirts of Smyrna, found by Mr. F. Spiegelton in 1865, and identified by me and brought to the British Museum by Mr. G. Dennis. The name of Lido or Lido-Akkadian is perhaps better for these monuments. The use of enormous blocks of admirably squared stone without cement is a feature common to both continents and deserving of investigation, as well as the mode in which such blocks were quarried and transported. In South America, there were no beasts or burden available, that's what they think, the employment of bricks and cement, and generally the adoption of the building art are also worthy of careful examination. Stevens in his Yucatan, Volume 1, page 131, gives a very remarkable engraving of a capital of a column of Uxmal of old world character. At Uxmal, there are buildings constructed on terraces and mounds as there were at Babylon. This is worth observing to further comment. So where's the real Babylon, huh? Uxmal, huh? Yeah. You guys can Google Uxmal. You'll see what they're talking about. Burial towers are to be recognized in Syria, Persia, India, Siam, and Peru, and of course in North America too. The knowledge of bronze, goldsmith work, silver work, and other metallurgy has not passed unobserved by writers. You guys know that was a contribution from America, metallurgy. It's in the Encyclopedia of American Indian Contributions of the World. Metallurgy was one of them. Believe it or not. Who mined all that copper out of Michigan? Who do you think mined all that copper? All these ancient mines they're finding all over the Americas. So, gold dentistry has been recognized in Peru and Egypt. Gold grills. We're talking about grills? Yeah. In ancient Peru and so called Egypt. What Egypt? Huh? Early history of mankind. Tyler. The employment of bronze in America presents no difficulty under the acceptation of Sumerian settlement. You hear that? So he's saying because there's bronze here, bronze work, right? Metal stuff, uh, sculptures, right? And metal. He's saying it has to be Sumerian, a Sumerian settlement. What Sumerians? If the Agas did not become acquainted with the large tin supplies of Malacca, the East Sumerians did, as they were with the working of gold and silver. Hence, they readily introduced these arts into America. Yeah, in reverse, or rather improved them, because the mound builders were acquainted with copper and bronze working. He just debunked himself, guys. So you just said Sumerians introduced that to us, but then you're saying the bronze. Man, do you know how much gold we had here when the Europeans got how much gold we had on us? What you talking about? This is the true Gold Coast. Come on, we just read that recently, right? The Tayo's Cave, all that gold there, all that military expedition, all those companies, remember? All that land survey they did and how much gold they found underneath there in the caves and all that. Although the Sumerians, as the topographical nomenclature shows, were acquainted with tin in Britain, before the Phoenicians, it is probable Malacca and not Britain was the great seat of the early supply of tin. Possible. Whereas Tarshish, Consul Hutchinson institutes a justifiable comparison between the masonry and pottery of ancient Peru observed by himself and the prehistoric discoveries of Dr. Schleiman in the Trot. In fact, if my views are correct, of the connection of the Lydians, Phrygians, and Carians of Asia Minor, who's the Carians? Caribs, who's the Etruscans? Who's the Etruscans? Who's the Egypt? Whoa. So we're talking about the Canary Islands, right? What was their name? The Guana. Forgot. With a G. You guys know what I'm talking about. So they're all related. We've read many other books relating these people, the navigational journeys. Now we're talking about philology. You know, that's what he's doing, but he's comparing a lot of different other things other than language. So he's trying to make a point. Like, look, it's not just the language, just like the architecture, the culture. You know, so many things, the food, the way, then they pray. They had their deities, everything, their mythology. So that's what he's pointing out. The masonry, of course, when we're talking about pyramids and architecture. And now he's saying, same thing, what you're finding, so-called Etruscans and all that people did, when they got to the so-called Mediterranean, where were they really coming from? where the knowledge of building come from, then there would be a positive identification of epoch and class between the triad and Peru. In Peru, drinking cups and other articles were buried with the dead, as in Etruria, etc. The Peruvian cups were supposed to be used for drinking at the funerals. The woven fabrics are also to be noted in connection with Peru and the country of the Tinai or Cambodia. The quipu or knotted cord, as a record, is found in Peru. Remember the quipus? Mexico, Hawaii, Polynesia. All right, they also got all that. Our distant cousins in Hawaii, original people, Hawaii, Polynesia, the Eastern Archipelago, and China. The scape Yama or Lama, referred to by David Forbes, may be compared with the scapegoat of the East. It's wool. It's just like sheep. You have to herd. You can be a shepherd to llama. People say, oh, it's not the biblical lands because there's no sheep there. Well, first of all, how you know there's no sheep here? And we had llamas. We had all that. Mammals originated. Again, catch up to the videos. Check out when mammals first walked on land, supposedly. They call it the Pennsylvania geological period. Pennsylvania. The sacrifices of men to the gods were used by the earlier races as the Dahomons, but it is to be noted that they were a practice also of the worship of Baal in Peru and in Mexico. Of course there was. This is the true old world. And that's what I'm saying. Don't mix all the nations together. We have many nations here occupying the same location in different periods. Remember, people conquer each other. So you're saying the Yucatan, well, the Yucatan was occupied by different nations at some point, in different periods. That's why they had wars, the classic period and all that, they tell you. And they all did different things. So von Humboldt long since noticed the connection of the Mexican calendar with the Asiatic and deduced the Asiatic origin of the civilization. All right, he saw it in reverse. The Yucatan calendar is allied to the Mexican. The subject of the calendars and inscriptions, together with Peruvian and Central American languages, has long occupied the Chevalier Boulard, the author of the Peruvian Antiquities and of many memoirs, particularly on the Maya alphabet. The half month in the early Maya or Yucatan calendar consisted of 13 days. The Siamese likewise used as an essential part of a date a half month. This now consists of 14 days. The dates in Siamese are arranged on a cross. In Yucatan, part of the cycle was placed on a wheel divided into four, practically north, east, west, and south. The two systems show a resemblance, and the cross may represent the spokes of a wheel. The Yucatan calendar, which was the same as the Mexican, has lucky and unlucky days, still a common system in the East. The cross has been found by Dr. Schleiman in the Troad, all right? We got the oldest cross in the world found in the Americas. I'm going to show you guys. Shout out to Pepper from the Telegram. The square cross is common among the Ayamaras and was observed by Stevens in Central America. The red hand seen in the monuments of Yucatan, Waller says he has seen as far south as Arica in Peru. All right, future video of this area, very ancient. Arica. Now, guys, I want you to add an F in between the A and the R. What do you get if you add an F to the A and R? As Africa in Peru. Arica. Doing vegetable substances, so well known in the East, takes place in Peru with coca. All right, coca. They in love with the coca. Yeah. David Forbes also observes that besides eating clay, the Ayamaras and Quichuas mix ashes of wood and plants with the coca leaf, and that this is like the Asiatic practice of adding lime to the betel nut, being in both cases for the purpose of setting free the vegetable alkaloid of the plant. The coca was anciently offered on the altar of the gods, and now on the altar of the Virgin. The Honorable Mr. Clay points out that the umbrella was a mark of dignity among the Peruvians, as it was in Babylonia, and is still in the Indo-Chinese countries. All right? And we reach part 2. All right? And don't worry, we ain't done. I'm gonna go ahead and read a little bit from part two, guys. Hope you guys enjoying this reading session. Says here part two, the connection of culture in Asia and America. The affinities of grammar between the New World and the Old, though dealt with by various writers, as in the Mythridates, were only scientifically treated by a few, as by Humboldt, the Reverend Richard Garnett, and Dr. Daniel Wilson. Characters common to the Polynesian had been recognized, but Garnett pointed out that, sorry, besides these, others were to be found common to the languages of the Deccan and India. On the other hand, Dr. Oscar Peschel in his Volkerkunde still maintains that the culture of Peru and Mexico was indigenous. All right? It's indigenous. It didn't come from nowhere. It's American indigenous. The cultures of Peru and Mexico are indigenous. They didn't come from the so-called old world. This is the old world. Gosh, your own hijacks. Mr. Tyler also says no certain proof of connection or intercourse of any kind between Mexico and Peru seems as yet to have been made out. And we have already debunked that. We had we've shown many connections with the people of Mexico and Peru. This expresses the state of prevalent opinion. All right, that's an opinion, he said. That's a prevalent opinion. And although the materials for linguistic investigation are abundantly displayed, all right, they haven't done their philology. Dr. Laton's valuable elements of comparative philology, such opinion has been little contested. In fact, although the languages are allied, yet the alliance has to be demonstrated from the outside, and until the disinterment and decipherment of the Sumerian or Akkad inscriptions, it was almost impossible to be proved. You guys hear what he's saying? He said we wouldn't know anything about the languages in America until we were able to decipher and determine what the Sumerian, so-called Assyrian script and Akkadian script said. The Aymara and Quichua languages of Peru, the Aztec of Mexico or Mexica, right, and the Maya of Yucatan are all allied with the Indo-Chinese, and thereby with the Akkad as Sumerian. Even to the negative series and numerals, the points of resemblance are remarkable. Who's the Western Chia? Chi people, right? Who's the Western Chia Empire that was, I believe, fighting with Prester John? Shout out to Drop Nation, Con Drop for the drop. Who is the Chang Dynasty? Who is the, oh man, hold on. Let me not go all there yet. Don't worry, we'll get to all that. Some of these resemblances between Akkad and Quichua, all right, between the Akkad, ancient old world Babylonian people, with the Quichua, all right, of Peru, Quichua, Quiche, the Maya Quiche, Quisha, is that your name, Quichua? Oh, okay, I get it now, huh? Quichua. Between Akkadian and Quichua had on the perusal of M. Lenormand's work struck Señor de la Rosa, a distinguished Peruvian scholar, and on the reading of this paper at the Anthropological Institute, he referred to several examples lying on the surface. He also referred to resemblances between Quichua and Semitic and Aryan. Okay? These I treated as resulting from the influence of Sumerian and the older languages as Semitic and Sanskrit. All right, so just want to point out this author right here he's all about the whole Sumerian thing, right? So he's saying it has to be that Sumerians came here, or that Sumerians, a prehistoric Sumerian people were here before they became known as Semitic. He said that in the first part of this series. Make sure to catch part one. All right. He's literally saying the origin of these people here, but he keeps trying to relate them to somewhere else. All right. Asians were from Africa. You know, like many nations in Africa come from different places of the world. You know, many did come out of Asia. Yes, that's like a whole future series I want to do. The Into Africa. the Into Africa series, yo. You know, that's going to be a good one. That's going to be a real good one. All right. These I treated as, all right. So sorry. Let me keep going. Getting pretty good. In Peru and Bolivia, the chief languages now are the Quichua or Inca and the Aymara. Of the Aymara, a copious and valuable memoir was on the 21st of June, 1870, communicated to the Ethnological Society, parent of the Anthropological Institute, by David Forbes, and this constitutes a textbook. The language of the Aymaras is spoken in southern Peru and northern Bolivia. They were conquered by the Incas. The Quichua is spoken in northern Peru and southern Bolivia. The Aymaras claim to have been a great people before the Inca conquest, all right? Before, we're talking about 1100s. We ain't talking about people today, all right? I know a lot of people like, yeah, you know, you don't look, you know, we're talking about before 1100, all right? And I got some pictures of some Aymaras even today. Just, I mean, they're gonna probably call them Afro Aymaras or Black Aymaras, but just Google that, and you see what I'm talking about. All right, and don't try to Africanize them. All right, show me the genealogy. Okay, so again, we continue. The Aymaras claim to have been a great people before the Inca conquest, 1100, perhaps beyond any South American people. Ruins of grand palaces and temples remain at Tihuanaca, on the south of Lake Titicaca. Tiwanaco, all right, Anak, Tiwanak, Anak. Some say Enoch, I would say Anak, the giant Anak and his four sons, the kingdom of the four winds. Or remember, we got this in the book of Tayo's Cave. It's all connected. A lot of those artifacts were coming from Tiwanaku. Was the capital, all right, and that was the what? The capital of the Aymara land. The capital of the Aymara land. Let me see if I got a picture here, guys. Hold on. Hold on. I got one. Just want to show you, because they won't show you these type of Aymaras. You guys see? Aymara. All right? They won't show you. They'll call these guys Afro Aymara. You know, they say, oh, they're just slaves. You know, just like they say to you and your ancestors, you know, to you, they say, well, you're only an Indian because one of your slave ancestors, you know, was adopted, and you know, they make up all these stories, right? But that's the Aymara, and many of him, many look like him, her. Hopefully, I'm not, you know, but I got this image here, and there's many of them. I've shown it in a lot of videos. All right, just wanted to show that real quick. Now we're gonna go back. Now, I'm not saying that the ones that don't look like him are not Aymara. Don't take me wrong. I just want to show you what they never show us. Because when you Google Aymara, that's not what you're going to get. You know, you be real about it. Okay? Don't be uncomfortable. You know, embrace all the Aymaras. Yeah. So again, they refer to themselves as a great people. And again, their capital was in Tiwanaku. The conquest of it was completed in 1289, but was followed by serious revolts. Who conquered them? The Incas. Yeah, the Incas and the Aztec were invading peoples. These are all future videos, and it's going to open up to a whole lot. It's going to connect to a lot of things. You know, we got to empty our cups and our biases and all that. Forbes says, too, that according to Indian traditions, from Aymara as well as Quichua, sources, the Aymaras, even before the time of the first Inca, Manco Capac, possess a degree of civilization higher than that of the Incas themselves. Consul Hutchinson maintained before the Institute a like doctrine as to the Chimus. All right, so Manco Capac was very superior than supposedly his own people, or who he ruled. Remember, Manco went and was the same as Mongol. I believe it was chief or leader, something like that. I forgot already. You guys got to watch part one and remind me. Come on. But it was, remember, he made that comparison. The Aymara is related to the Quichua, which was the governmental language of Peru under the Incas. Quichua, Sumerian, Akkadian, Aymara, among people devoted to the worship of the sun. It might be expected the word for sun would be remarkable, but so it is only in one respect that the word inti, as the word for eye in the African tanakil, is one canon in prehistoric philology, that eye and sun are permutable because the sun was called the sky eye. The Ayamata, etc., resemblances to Danakil, all right, Shiho, and Adayal of Northeast Africa, as shown, all right. Listen, look what they're comparing, and don't be looking at it in reverse. Talking about true old world, so yeah, people migrate, people took on navigational journeys, you know. The eye of the Ayamata, says Forbes, has the central line very slightly inclined inwards, not nearly so much as in the Mongol, yet not altogether horizontal as in many of the Chinese. An approximation to this form of eye is observable among the Indo-Chinese. But then it must be noted that it is also found among the Guaranis of Brazil. Forbes says that the figure given in Smith's Natural History of the Human Species of an Indian of the Otto tribe in North America is almost an exact likeness of Konduri, an old Ayamata man sometime in my service. Okay? North and South America connecting the Otto people with the Ayamata. Although Studi attributes the elongated skulls to the Incas, it was, as Forbes points out, to the Ayamatas that belonged the skulls found near Lake Titicaca. The Ayamata language is nearest to the Peguan. Again, it's nearest to what? Peguan, Southeast Asia, Melanesians, all right? And it is in Arakan, near the Peguan area, that among hill tribes, the system of flattening the skull is now practiced. They even flatten their skull, just like the ancient Ayamata. All right? How did they get over there? We know Southeast Asians were definitely navigating. We know that. So, where was the origin? Or was it a land that was connected, Southeast Asia all the way to Peru or something? You know, we're talking about parts of Lemuria or parts that are under the water now. More connection, more islands. But still, one family, one tribe, one people, like there was connected, you know, commerce, trade in ancient times. With regard to the hair of the Ayamatas, it is extremely abundant and long in the man as well as the woman. It is of deep black brown or black color, perfectly straight, without any attempt. So he wrote this in 1875. Okay, so that's what he's comparing it with. Okay, it is noticeable that the men wear their hair drawn backwards over their heads and plaited into long pigtails. All right, so he doesn't really. You don't know when he's describing it who he's talking about. Actually, don't just assume he's talking about straight hair either. This practice corresponds with that of Asia. Forbes knows that the women have two pigtails. This appears recognizable in Etruscan and some archaic monuments of the West. And I want you guys to go look up the old stone depictions and pottery of the Etruscans, and you're going to see a lot of so-called black folks. All right. So don't just picture like Roman, pale skin, you know, what they show you on TV only. All right. Yeah. But they had, yeah, many shades, I'm sure. The men are proud of their pigtails, and Forrest believes introduce false hair. This is done in China. Cutting up the pigtail is as their the severest punishment. The Ayamata and Quichua Indians are noted for their character of submission to authority, enabling them to be used for the foundation of a great empire. And this is a feature of the Indo-Chinese people. The Ayamata area has been supposed to be limited to that now occupied, but it is to be observed that the names found in the neighborhood of Lake Titicaca are much better developed in New Granada. Okay, 1 second, guys. Open with preview. I'm going to show you guys something. All right, I just want you to know I'm not just making stuff up here, okay? All right, we're talking about Etruscans, right? Talking about Etruscans, right? These are Etruscans. And then we got our boy right here, Etruscan, 500 BC, Etruscan. Yeah, I know a lot of people get uncomfortable when I start doing it. Like, well, it's not about color, it's always, Well, you didn't mind when everybody was whitewashing everything and making us look at white images only growing up. And even when you Google Etruscan right now, you're gonna get these cartoon drawings. Yeah, whitewashed cartoon drawings. Go to the actual stone though. Go to the walls and you'll see what's painted there. Hope that's clear. Okay, let's keep going here. Let's see. The Ayamara area has been supposed to be limited to that now occupied, but it is to be observed that the names found in the neighborhood of Lake Titicaca are much better developed than New Granada. It is therefore evident that the Ayamara or perhaps pre-Ayamara occupation must have extended so far north. Mr. Clemens Markham considers that the Inca Empire never reached so far northward, and Mr. Forbes was not aware of such an extension of the Ayamara as must now be allowed for. Ayamara is possibly the equivalent of Khmer or Khmer, the name of the Cambodians, and of the summer, okay? The name of the people connected with ACCAD. Quichua in Peru and Quiche in Mexico may represent the Kisi or Sisi near Babylon, Kishi, Quichua, Kishi, and they may be connected with Kush and Akush of the Quichua or Inca language and people. It is not necessary to say so much, as they are more familiarly known and have been and will be incidentally referred to. To the Quichua language, Mr. Clemens Markham has devoted himself and produced a grammar and dictionary which have been of very great service in these investigations. I have also employed the art of Torres Rubio, on which his grammar is founded. This work of Mr. Markham's is likely to be of more importance even than he anticipated, now that Quichua and Ayamara must be studied for the comparative grammar of ACCAD. Okay? Señor de la Rosa and Señor Pacheco are engaged on new Quichua grammars. Consul Hutchinson, who has given so much labor to the prehistoric archaeology of Peru, places the Chimus before the Quichuas in Peru, but I have no specimen of the language. The Aztec culture of Mexico, as Humboldt well saw, was derived from the Old World and was its language, which is to be classed with Sumerian, but intermediate between Ayamara and Otomi. That's what it really is. The Otomi Coda and Tarahumas, with perhaps the Huasteca, constitute a class under Sumerian influence, but allied with the Adige or Circassian, which likewise exhibits Sumerian influence and has a remarkable but distant resemblance with Etruscan. All right. Yeah, Sumar. Okay. Sumer. It's just a place, it's not a people. Sumerian. I'm going to put it in the chat. Look them up. There's your real Sumerians. The presence of the Circassian Otomi has to be accounted for. Wait, hold on. Did I? Okay, no. In the Circassian, I had long since traced what are called North American characteristics and others I found in the Georgian, but the cause was unknown to me till of late. A considerable influence must have been exerted by the Aga and Otomi migrations on the Indian languages of North America. Otomi migrations. The presence of the Circassian Otomi has to be accounted for. The higher Sumerians are marked as city-building people, but the Circassian in the Caucasus is what the Otomi is in Mexico. The Otomis must have preceded the Sumerians in South America. Preceded the so-called Sumerians, or been driven forward by them, as the Aga Guarani were into Brazil. Aga Guarani. Remember, the Aga people are over there in East Africa. Remember the comparison he made on part one of this with the Aga and the Guarani. The Otomis may have had connections or dealings with the monument building races of North America. Mound builders, huh? At a later date, on the Sumerian kingdoms of Mexico becoming weaker, they returned and invaded Mexico. Dr. Latam gives the result of a very hurried collation for the Otomi, said to be with the languages akin to the Chinese en masse, and for the Maya. The latter list is chiefly of Aztec words. He makes no remarks. The tables show many affinities with the Tonkin and Cochin Chinese. All right, so a lot of it is mostly Aztec. They're telling you because it's related to these ancient languages. Shout out to Tona V. He got a YouTube channel. Check it out. He reads a lot of great books, guys. You know, a lot of books I don't get to, and very good investigations. You know, in his classroom. Much love to everybody in the chat. We live. King Katura, thanks for being here. Yeah, Sahaha, yeah, and everybody that's always here supporting. I'm just going through the names right now, real quick. All right. Hope you guys enjoying the read. Very good read, actually. Very important, very deep investigation. You know, hopefully more people get interested in it. You know, instead of just pointing fingers and talking about physical appearances only. But yeah, a lot of these again, these relations, there is relations, literally, in many cases because they are related. Okay, because literally they are related. Okay, you know, it's not just people conquering others and them adopting the language always. You know, which did happen, but literally some of these are related, like literally. Okay. So, had Dr. Latam followed this up, he might probably have obtained a clue to the relation of the Mexican languages, though he might have been baffled that some of the affinities can only be illustrated by bringing together the Quichua and Aymara as members of the group and the ACCAD then undeciphered. It is, in fact, now a part of the evidence that Humboldt, Garnet, Latam, etc., are found to have contributed material for the true solution. The history of Mexico is supplied from accessible sources. Its best known language is the Aztec. All right, so that's very new, you know, so-called Aztec. Are we talking about the original Mexica? There is a later Aztec group that's not Mexica. On the preceding Toltec, I can throw no light. All right, but who was there before all of them? The preceding, the so-called Toltec and Cholula. Cholula, all right, where the Chorotega came out of. Yeah, they fled Cholula, ended up in Costa Rica. Part of my lineage, one of my lines goes back there that I was able to go. So the monuments and culture of Mexico may, after the reference already made to them, be passed over. Suffice as to say, the monuments are of great dimensions and highly decorated. Yucatan possesses similar remains described by J.L. Stevens. The Maya, a language formerly cultivated, comes distinctly within the Sumerian class. All right, they classify Maya with the so-called Sumerian, which is not even real, because that's mostly Assyrian script. I'm trying to tell you guys, or what they call it, Akkad or Akkadian. Summer is a location. Sumar, sorry. An Incidents of Travel by J.L. Stevens in Central America, Chiapas, and Yucatan. Volume 2 are hieroglyphics which are arranged in rows and appear to present some of the principles of the cuneiform or hierarchic, all right, of the cuneiform. And this is what he's showing. The same is to be observed at Palenque. These latter present even more resemblance to the Hamath inscriptions, as you see the symbols there, also the extended arm. And Easter Island is worth further examination. The square hieroglyphics, or rather squares of hieroglyphics, found in Central America are most probably only a modification of the row or column of hieroglyphics in the Yucatan and Hamath, and which has a representative and hieratic cuneiform. The carvings on the rocks at the Jonan Pass in Peru, engraved by Consul T.J. Hutchinson, are deserving of study. Remember all these old world inscriptions. So picture when he's literally telling you, he's going at it in a different way. But we've seen these inscriptions. I've shown you guys a picture, and all these people telling you, yeah, it's like Sumerian, it's Phoenician, Akkadian, Punic, Libyan, we finding all that here. So this is what he's actually talking about. Some of the characters are ideographs, or some likewise present a resemblance to Hamath and other characters, and Easter Island inscriptions deserve attention. The question may be incidentally considered whether the Sumerian population of Indochina was supplied from Babylonia or the common center in High Asia. In my view, it was from the common center, because although there are great affinities between Sumerian or Akkad and its Eastern analogues, yet there are greater affinities between these, and there are common points of dissimilarity from Sumerian. There were most probably two migrations of Sumerian, most probably. Probably Sumerians came over here or they went over there, probably, and succession to the Aga. One embraced the Akkad, Mon, Cambodian, Ayamada, and Maya, and Toltec. Yeah, he's seen it in reverse for sure. The other, the Georgian, Etruscan, Siamese, Quichua, and Aztec. The earliest may, however, have been the Circassian, Otomi. That's from America, the Otomi. Mr. Park Harrison strongly maintains that civilization must have had a passage from the old world to Peru. Must have. Again, remember, they're finding all this stuff over here. Now their language, they're like, man, it's no doubt the language is the same. They had to have come over here. There has to be a secret passage. A passage. They're seeing it in reverse, guys. This is what I'm trying to tell you the whole time. All right. Mr. Park Harrison strongly maintained that civilization must have had a passage from the old world to Peru by Easter Island, and he has brought the subject before the Anthropological Institute and the British Association. The phenomena here described of the distribution of population in South America greatly favored this view. There were, however, looking to geographical circumstances, probably two routes by the northern and southern islands and currents, and these may have affected the collocation of the various populations. Proceeding onwards, Indochina, or the southern districts of the further peninsula beyond India, may be treated as one linguistic area. They include Pegu in the west, Siam in the middle, and Cambodia in the east. This region was known to the ancients as being held by populations in a state of advancement. Pegu is the country at the mouth of the Irrawaddy and was formerly independent but fell under the dominion of the Burmese Empire. In 1852, the province with the towns of Pegu, Prome, and Rangoon was taken by the English. The people call themselves Mon, but are called Halain by the Burmese. The language is a most valuable member of the Sumerian for illustration. There are large ruins. Siam lies in the middle of India, beyond the Ganges, and is the seat of a great and settled empire. The Siamese people and language are, however, of less importance to us in this inquiry, as this period than are the others. Cambodia or Kamboja, Kamfucha, Kamfucha, or Kamfuka, Chinese, is the western part of Annam or Cochin, China, Cochin, Sina, on the Saigon and Cambodia rivers borders on eastern Siam. Of late years, it has been attacked by the French, who have taken a hold of Saigon. The French, huh? The great marble ruins of the ancient capital, the Thi Nai, near Saigon, have long been known. The Cambodians were remarked by the early Arab voyagers as manufacturers of very fine linen. The natives called themselves Kamerin or Kemer, equals Ayamara. Hitaya, too, or Indochina, may be equivalent to Kishi or Sishi and to Quichua. It is to be observed that the explored monuments of Cambodia are not ancient like those of Babylonia, but rather modern and synchronous with those of Peru and Mexico. Gosh, the hijack is very ancient. Yeah, It is synchronous with the people of Peru, because who went over there? Who's the ancient Nagas? Because the Nagas built that. They tell you the first people were the Nagas in Cambodia, the ancient people, and they built all these monuments. Who's the Nagas? All right. So Dr. Haja, when he's saying Sumerian Babylonia, because again, even though he's literally debunks himself by saying Sumerian, Akkad, all that pre-Sumerians, all that was here, the origin of culture, he keeps trying to put it somewhere else. Where is this mystery Babylon and Sumeria? What are you talking about? Where are they? Where exactly in the world? He hasn't really specified that, guys. I hope you caught on to that. He's just talking about, oh, this is resemblance to Sumerians, resemblance. Everything is Sumerian to this guy. Dr. Hijack. You know, we all come with our biases, yes, even him, but we pull out the babies, right? All the jewels he's quoting, all the comparisons. So Cambodia has been studied by M. Muhad and by M. Garnier in his large and valuable work, and lately by Mr. Kennedy in his paper, read before the Indian section of the Society of Arts, when I presided and had the opportunity of giving some early explanations of the linguistic relations as recorded in the Journal of the Society. The ancient kingdom of Cambodia in India, which gave name to the Gulf of Cambodia or Cambay, has engaged the attention of Indian archaeologists, but not to the degree its importance merits. In the latter history of this kingdom, it was still considerable, but it was the representative of an ancient and perhaps the earliest civilization of India, belonging to that epoch which was universal, of which General Cunningham has found the examples. The river names of India are repeated in New Granada, in America, New Granada, on the one hand, and in Etruria and Italy on the other. In conformity, as I stated in a note sent to the International Congress of Orientalists, the town names obey the same law. It was from India and not from Babylonia that we may, as said, assume that the stream of civilization passed toward the Pacific, and in India would yet be found the origins and remains of early letters, the influence of which to this day will still be recognized. The two names of the 100 steamed feeder of the Indus, Hesudrus, 100 Georgian, and Sadudrus, 100 Sanskrit, are worthy of note, as also Atasi, 1,000 Georgian, and Atasi, 88 Hindustani. All right, so I want you guys, if you haven't been able to catch up, or you're new to the channel, I have some great videos on who the ancient Nagas most logically and historically are, right? With sources, we're talking about real investigation. So it's not, again, seeing it in reverse. All right, Lemuria, where's Lemuria and Atlantis, really? The Akkad, or Sumerian, must be looked upon as a main stock of the class. Of the cuneiform inscriptions, the Assyrian and the latter Persians had been deciphered, while an early type named after the kings of Akkad remained obscure. Mr. Oppert supported non-Semitic and non-Aryan interpretation, and by the help of the Reverend A. H. Sassi and Mons F. Lenormand, many of the characters have now been read, and the language is disclosed to the world. What that language may be has been hitherto a matter of dispute. The chief authorities upon it have shown many relations with Basco-Calarian and Ugrian, while I have confirmed my own forecast in the Journal of the Anthropological Institute that it would be found to have Georgian affinities and to belong to a Paleo-Asiatic class. Old Asiatic class. Remember, that included North America, High Asia, India Superior. I am now, however, able more distinctly to assign its position by showing that whatever its other affinities may be, it is closely connected in language with the former monument and city building races of the Old and New World. Related, connected, closely connected, and related with the so-called New World. This is the Old World. That's why and they weren't able to figure it out in their lifetime. How blind were they really? But they did great work leaving us these books, guys. And we gotta be able to go through them and get the jewels out and tell the story correctly with all the other research and evidence and corroboration we have. Archaeology, the genealogy, all that, all that. Mongols mean great empire, so I don't know what you mean Mongols. Mongols is not a nation, and the word Mongols was in the 19th century. That's a whole different thing. You know, original Mongols, Genghis Khan was the so-called black man. Yeah. So dash your own hijacks. Chew the meat, spit out the bones, yeah. Or eat your watermelon, spit out the seeds if you want, you know. However you want. Yeah. I appreciate everybody's opinions though, you know, and thoughts and everything. We try to go with sources here, not just with one worders. We don't do one worders here. We don't. So yeah, the early kings of Chaldea. Oh, hold on, I didn't read this part. Yeah, keep the C's. In the 10th chapter of Genesis, Akkad is brought into the scheme of classification under the family of Ham. The early kings of Chaldea. Chaldea, the early kings of Chaldea. Ur of the Chaldees, Ireland, huh? Didn't we read a whole series on that? With Chaldea, entitled themselves rulers of Sumeri and Akkad, all right? This is what I'm saying. In that book, which we're going to go back to and do a whole marathon on those parts, because we didn't even read the last chapter. And I want to finish that book. So remember, Sumeri, they're telling you, this is where these words are coming from. Sumeri, rulers of Sumeri, a place, a land, and Akkad, which was in Chaldea. Where was Chaldea really? Dr. Hinks, on the strength of inscriptions belonging to Akkad, had proposed for the language of the name of Akkad, and Mr. Upper directed attention to the fact that the people called themselves Sumer or Sumer, and urged the adoption of the term Sumerian. Look, the adoption of the term Sumerian. I swear I didn't know this was in here. I told you. That's a term, that's a tag that came later on. This appears worthy of support from the nature of allied forms. Samaria, a holy city and country, Semirus in Armenia, and Seumara in Iberia are perhaps forms of summer. Now there's a lot of summers, you see? Now there's a bunch of summers all over the place. Rama and Roma would be conformable. Just like Rimon, people of the promised land, Rimon, where the pomegranate grows, Rimon, Roma. Armenia belongs to the same stock and epoch. Smyrna or Smyrna and Samorna of Ephesus may also be assigned as maybe a Smyrna of Hyrcania and Simura of Aria. Ephesus and Smyrna must have been great seats of Sumerians. There we have Mount Tipula, with a Stiburu, look at that, just like the car model almost, or statue, Akkad or Niobe. Near is another Lide Sumerian sculpture, the pseudo-Sesostris of Nympha. Near Ephesus is Pigela or Pukala, the castle. The R changing to L in this district. It is to be observed that besides the cuneiform, wedge-shaped, or arrow-headed, there is an earlier character of the Akkad people, to which Mr. Oppert has given the name of Hierarchic. In my opinion, the Hamath inscription of Syria are to be deciphered on this basis, and the Maya of Yucatan has apparent resemblances. If this be the case, we may look for inscriptions of the Akkad period, if not classed in the buried cities of India. Why does the Maya are the Nagas? It was long since pointed out by me that there were early alphabets independent of Phoenician, all right, independent of Paleo-Hebrew, and springing from the basis of the hierarchic and arrow-headed, and I refer to being used in arrow-headed, and to the Libyan of Tuga for sun, to the probable connection of Hamath, hierarchic, and Hebrew with Cyprioti or Cypriot, and other characters common in Warka, Cyprioti, Arctic, and Albanian, or Himyaritic. The passage of an alphabet from Babylonia is now acknowledged through the discoveries in Cyprioti and at Hisarlik. I attribute to Celtiberian characteristics to a like origin. Who's the original Celtiberians? Huh? The Georgian languages afford an interpretation of some of the terms of the pre-Hellenic, pre-Greek, pre-Hellenized people, pre-Hellenic topographical nomenclature of the Old World, a nomenclature of different people in a specific location. He literally just said what I told you guys earlier, grouping all these people as Greeks. These languages now include the Kartveli or Georgian, the Swan, the Lassian of Asia Minor, the Mingrelian, etc. One ancient representative appears to me to have been the Canaanite. All right, the Canaanite. While the names of rivers and places are uniform in Asia Minor, the few remains of the language and inscriptions except the Lycian, which is most likely Lesgian, appear to conform to a Canaanite or Georgian standard. To this, in compliance with ancient tradition, the Etruscan is by me annexed as it was in 1870 and 1871, although it must be stated that my materials of interpretation have as yet been scanty. The Reverend Isaac Taylor, who has published a book on the Ugrian hypothesis of Etruscan at the Congress Orientalis, produced a further paper as to the connection of Etruscan with Akkad, which is based upon and confirms my views. In illustration of the general connection and of the interesting question of Etruscan, tables 1 and 2 may be referred to. One source of Etruscan, as of some other extinct languages, is to be traced by the same process of survival as in all anthropological departments. Latin will, when duly worked by analysis, form a rich mind. Latin, we're talking about original Latin. I'm going to show you guys original Latin. It says survivals of Etruscan and Latin. Okay. While Canaanitic and Hamav come within the Hamitic scheme of Genesis and are so far allied to Sumerian, which their character of culture supports, yet there are divergences of language and of culture so great that I cannot but regard a Canaanitic, Lydian, and Etruscan as constituting a distinct branch at present to be assigned to Sumerian, but perhaps afterwards to be subdivided. All right, in the following illustrations, the same characteristics as in Etruscan are to be found. All right, so hold up. Just look at this real quick. So it says here Etruscan, Georgian, others, America. So just in case you guys, want to take a quick screenshot. All right. All right. And it says here continuing. So here's another little graph. Okay. He said too small. Hey, man, I do my best here, man. A Mav or some such local metropolis most likely afforded the center of a distinct development of civilization, with trinal forms of language and mythology, and producing syllabic and alphabetic characters afterwards attributed to the Phoenicians. Now, we got a whole video on that. We got a whole video on, how phonetics came about. Phonetics, the sound of words, right? From hieroglyphics or pictograph, right? Georgian and Akkad have double plurals, the remains of a prehistoric characteristic, and there are resemblances in the verbs and numerals, but there are dissimilarities as already written. The Georgian double plurals, ni and bi, figure as third personal pronouns in Akkad. These particles are not without resemblance to negatives. At an early period of the examination of Georgian, I was much struck with the propensity for sticking in or inserting consonants, as in Mexican and other languages. The immediate explanation of the TL in Mexican is, however, to be sought in Circassian. In Georgian, it is perhaps TH. The exact affinities of Georgian are not shown by the existing members of the Sumero-Peruvian class. Some are found in Ka, a language allied to the Indo-Chinese group, and some in Cambodian. Georgian is evidently related to Etruscan. Thus, The elements of Georgian are found in the numerals 1, R3, and SO, as you guys see. The Georgian numerals are equal to left-hand mon and Ka numerals. All right. Again, feel free to pause this when you get the time and, you want to take screenshots or whatever, compare. So comparison of Akkad and Quichua grammar, as you were saying earlier. Quichua, Quisha, Quiche. Referring to the affinities of language, the town of Eten, in Peru is said to have peculiar language. It is asserted that the population can converse with the Chinese laborers. You guys hear that? This statement has been quoted by Mr. Clement Markham and is denied by Consul Hutchinson, who visited Eten. As the council does not give any Chinese or any specimen of the language, it is difficult to decide. He quotes Mr. Stevenson as saying that they speak Chimo. If this language is allied to the other cultivated languages of Peru, then some numerals and a few other words may resemble Chinese and give foundation for the report. It will be seen that the resemblance to the Indo-Chinese is such as to give an explanation of many of the supposed cases of connection with Chinese. One of the best examples of supposed linguistic resemblance to Chinese was given by Mr. Stephen Powers in the Atlantic Monthly for March 1874 with regards to the Gali Nomero or Gayi Nomero. These are tribes on the northwest coast of America, near Helsingborg on the lower reaches of Russian River. The identification is, however, inconclusive because Gali Nomero is allied to Kwakla and that again to Kulunapu, which again is a branch of the Yuma class. Mr. C.G. Leland was undertaken to publish an account of the Chinese intercourse with North America. All right. And this is not just Bering Strait crossings, this could be back and forth trade on ships, Again, different nations, many different trades, many people that are related. So the Yuma, they're saying, are related to these people in language. And we showed the Yuma how they look, in the 1800s, very dark complexion people. The resemblance of the names of places is very deceptive, but that between the names of Peruvian and Yucatan places and Old World nomenclature is so striking as to require record, and it suitably follows the linguistic portion. In fact, there is scarcely Peruvian or Maya name which cannot be at once dealt with, but Mexican is more refractory. The nomenclature of India, within and beyond the Ganges of Babylonia, of Etruria and Italy, and even of Britain, is reproduced or represented in South America. Reproduced, nope, represented. Yeah, you reproduced it in Italy, Etruria, and Britain. Yeah, that's where it was reproduced. That's the hijack. They always seen it in reverse. Where China get their jade from. That's what I've been saying. The Reverend Mr. Sassi states that a continuation of W. von Humboldt's researches in local names has extended the range of the Basque across the south of Europe as far as Asia Minor, and the subfamily thus formed may conveniently be called Iberian. This is an error in which I have shared, as W. von Humboldt includes many names in Spain as Basque, which are not so, and the names so spoken of may be found in India or Peru. The following shows the river names of New Granada in comparison with India and Italy. All right, river names in America, and then Hindustan and Italy, okay? You see? So this is the graph he got. Suarez, Suarabis, what? Of the river names, America, India, East, West. Kakatis, Kakakachi. All right. With regard to lake names, they appear to be related to river names. Parras, Pracias. Petén, Pitán, Petén, Pitán. The identifications of Fukeni and Petén are striking. In the reduction of mountain names, very little fortune has ever attended me. The cause appears to be that few are Sumerian, that some are Aga, and that some are most likely older. Second, guys. Okay. Some of these must be identical. The town names are thus shown. So Arica, Araca, Arica, Araca. The ACCAD cities mentioned in the Bible in Genesis 10, verse 10, 11, and 12, besides Babel, ACCAD, and Rehoboth are Erek, Compare, Arica, Erek, Arica, Peru, Calne, Calanoche, Peru, Oculan, Ninue or Nineveh, Unanue, Peru, Cala, Colacote, Desen, Charasani, Dasani, Desen, Dasani. Many cities in Palestine are closely represented, a circumstance worthy of remark and which may indicate Sumerian influence in Brazil, if not that the Sumerians had settlements there. All right, they've seen it in reverse. Is that the Guarani word for town is Taba, that is Taba, or Thebes, etc. of geography, the Daba of the present Georgians. If the Sumerians had at any time a settlement on the great river mouths, the passage of the Atlantic would be credible, and the knowledge of the Atlantic Ocean by the geographers of Babylonia and Pergamos accounted for. All right. And the book is, even more better. It keeps going over new information. I want to actually end it here because it's already been 2 hours. So I don't want to make these videos too long. People won't click on them, So, it's a good 2-hour read. If anybody ever, wants to hear it, they have 2 hours. It's not too long. So I hope you guys enjoyed so far this book. Of course, we're going to read the whole book because it's very, very good. I'm learning a lot from it. And we've got many books again this week we're going to read from this week. Much appreciation, much love, Michael. Thank you for the love and everything, the donation, the support. Appreciate that. Really appreciate that. Let me see what we have here. Music. Okay. Yeah, so let me just show the book again in case anybody wants to see the title. All right, so again, this book was researches in prehistoric and protohistoric comparative philology, mythology, and archaeology in connection with the origin of culture in America and the Akkad or Sumerian families by Hyde Clark from 1875. You guys have a great Monday. Give you your time back with your family or your work or your personal time. All right. Hope you guys enjoyed the read again. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure to like and share. Let's help the channel grow. Let's help this information, get spread. And again, try to clear up your stereotypes. Get rid of your stereotypes, your prejudices, and it's all right. Everybody can have their own opinion. But it's not fact, so you don't have to make that known to everybody what your opinions are always, especially if it's rude or disrespectful, it has no value, then why say it? Didn't your mama tell you, if you got nothing nice to say, don't say it at all? Thank you, Tara, for the donation. Appreciate it. And you, Michael, appreciate it. And everybody else, all of my Patreons, people holding me up, I appreciate all the Patreons. Anybody that just shows support, shows the love in any way, I appreciate it. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Much love and respect. Pura vida, mi gente. Wow, 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 wow.